Let's talk to the Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, who joins us now. Really good to see you this morning, Minister. You'll have seen this big spread in the Mail today, and one of the key points in this is that defence, according to this survey, the general public think defence is better left in hands of the Labour Party than the Conservative Party. Now, that is quite something. You are normally the party trusted on defence. What is going wrong?
I think that's in the context of the wider polling. I saw that poll, which also says, of course, that 45% of people don't want to see Starmer as Prime Minister, so you can take it any way you like. On defence particularly, I would say, to point out the obvious, Keir Starmer supported twice Jeremy Corbyn, who wanted to pull us out of NATO and abandon our nuclear defence. So I don't think that it is the case that Labour could be trusted on defence, not least because they have 11 members of his shadow team who themselves voted against our nuclear deterrent. So I don't think they are credible when it comes to being the party of defence.
No, it is the backdrop to this, not that, we know the armed forces are struggling, we know numbers are down, we know equipment isn't available to a lot of these soldiers. Particularly, you've got to look at the number of tanks we've got where people are, they're really struggling to get hold of tanks, a lot of the household divisions and what have you. It's hugely problematic, and what we're not seeing is anything improving under the government.
I have to sort of take some issue with this, actually, because apart from anything, I'm going to see our Challenger 3 tank later today up in Telford, which is our latest and will be the best tank, one of the best tanks in the world. We're also spending more on defence in cash terms than we've ever spent, and increased the spending this year. We are one of only 2 countries in the world who actually go out and use our defensive ability, for example, against the Houthis, or even on Saturday night, where the fantastic RAF were defending Israel from those incoming missiles and attacks from drones. So we are prepared to use our armed forces, and of course it's the second biggest one in NATO. So we are not small or minnows in this. Of course we can always do more. I'm Defence Secretary. I want us to do more. We're pledged to get to 2.5% when conditions allow, and I want to get to that point. But I think to claim that Labour are somehow the party of defence when their own shadow foreign secretary voted against Trident and their own deputy prime minister, Angela Rayner, voted against Trident is somewhat ridiculous. We don't think that they can be trusted on defence. Of course, it's my job to demonstrate that point.
On the topic of spending in defence, the Treasury confirmed there'd be no increase in defence spending before the general election. You must be so disappointed by that answer, considering the threats that we're seeing from Russia, China and Iran, and as you say, the events of Saturday night.
What I think is really important is the kind of direction of travel, and we have already said, and the Prime Minister's repeated, Chancellor as well, we want to get to the 2.5%. We'll do it when conditions allow us to do it. But in the meantime, I think it's probably important to understand we have actually, even at this last budget, 1.8% real terms increase in our defence budget. So I'm Defence Secretary. Of course, I want to see more money in whatever Secretary of State you are, whichever position I've been in the past, whether it's been in transport or in energy or several others. I've always fought for, and I have to say, won budgets for those areas. But the important thing is, we do care about the defence of the realm. We understand it's the first task of any government, and we have an armed forces well equipped that we can be proud of in this country. And the proof of the pudding is we are the ones going out and defending freedom of navigation at sea in the Red Sea, helping Israel in its own defence on Saturday night, and many other examples like that where we're Ukraine. No country, as President Zelensky has said to me directly, no country has stepped up, done more, been prepared to give more in terms of its leadership, as well as the biggest package ever this year that Rishi Sunak and myself have given to Ukraine, bigger than was given under even Boris Johnson. So, no one should doubt how much we're stepping up to help defend in this world in British interests.
Yeah, what about defending the UK in all of this? And it's a valid point that people raise, isn't it? Because we are providing an awful lot to places like Ukraine. We are supporting in the defence of Israel, certainly to an extent. I know that's a controversial issue in and of itself for some people. But what about the threat here in the UK and how capable we are actually of defending ourselves, because that seems to be the one part which is a little bit lacking at the moment.
Well, some of that is because in part we don't advertise the reasons of national security, all our layers of defence. Some are known about, for example, the quick reaction that we have through the typhoons constantly available and ready to scramble. But we also have other forms of defence as well, missiles and other things, which I can't go into. Of course, we're always reviewing this. I keep a very close eye on what else we could be doing. But big difference between, say, the United Kingdom and Israel that was recently attacked is the UK is in NATO, and Article 5 of NATO says that if one country is attacked, then the 31 others all immediately come to its assistance. And it's one of the reasons NATO countries don't tend to be attacked. In fact, never attacked because of this. So it does mean that we have an additional layer of protection, even over and above the immediate physically obvious protection. But always keep that under review, always looking to do more. But Britain is a force for good when it comes to not only our national defence, the jobs that brings, but also international defence. And I think we should be very proud of our service personnel who do a phenomenal job. I think last year we operated, if I'm correct, in 69 different countries around the world. The scale of this is perhaps something that most people are not familiar with.
On the situation between Israel and Iran, your colleague Lord Cameron has met with Benjamin Netanyahu, who's made it clear that Israel are going to make their own decisions in terms of retaliation. What's your understanding of what Israel's response will look like? And are you concerned about what this tit for tat will eventually lead to, considering, the front page of the Eye this morning, the advancement of the Iranian nuclear program in the past few years?
I think Iran has been worrying us for years, and the nuclear program. We know that the last report out was 83.7% enriched uranium. That's incredibly. There's no civil use for that. That's only for military potential use. And we've just seen what Iran's done. They've just attacked a democratic country in the Middle East. Iran themselves are autocratic or theocratic country who say they want to destroy that country. So I don't think there's any doubt at all. Iran is bad news. They sponsor all the three H's, the Hamas, the Houthis, and of course Hezbollah in the Middle East. They're bad news. It is, of course, absolutely wrong that Israel was attacked. That's why we took part in the defense of Israel on Saturday night. What we've been saying to Israel is we have to be careful here not to get into a spiral that simply leads to further regional conflict or something equally. And it's important to, therefore, ensure that the response, which we absolutely accept Israel is going to make, we understand that, but that it is a response that is intelligent and well thought through. And that is the point we've been making. And I think that Israel is perfectly within her rights to defend herself. If that was the UK attacked by 300 drones, ballistic, cruise missiles on Saturday nights, even expecting us to respond as well.
Can we broaden it out a little bit? I mean, we all understand how politics works, to an extent, at least. And you've got to get on with your job. You've got a job to do. You've got to get on with it. You've got to plan for what you will do when you win the next election, from your perspective. We totally get that. But when you look at all the polling, when you look at the fact there's been another scandal with Mark Menzies losing and having to lose the party whip and all that going on over the last day or so, how do you even begin to deal with that? Because everybody expects now, everyone with any political nous is expecting there to be a Labour government whenever that election is called. How do you even put forward an argument to try to counter that?
Well, first of all, I get on my job as Defence Secretary, defending the realm, making sure this country is safe. you're right, the politics all continues as well. I'd say this. I think most people recognise that we have been through extraordinarily difficult times. We've had the COVID pandemic. We've had this war in Europe. We've now got this conflict in the Middle East. All of this stuff has a big impact, not least on the economy. But we've got a Prime Minister in Rishi Sunak who has gone out, done the right thing, saved millions of jobs during the pandemic, is very good at making difficult decisions, for example, on the Northern Ireland situation, in order to get that resolved. And actually, they'll look at him and they'll look at the alternative, Keir Starmer, who, just last night ordered his lords, his peers in the House of Lords, to vote again against the Rwanda scheme. And in doing so, has tried to shoot down legislation, which is, as far as I can work out, the only solution out there to stop the trade in people, the human trafficking, the gangs bringing people across the channel. And I don't hear any alternative from that. In fact, I think Keir Starmer is terrified that the Rwanda scheme would somehow work. I don't understand what his alternative is. Easy to snipe from the sidelines. Been in politics long enough to know, and I was party chairman once for David Cameron in the run-up to the 2015 election, where I'd sit on shows like this, and sometimes they put graphics up behind me to demonstrate it was impossible for us to get an overall majority in 2015. Of course, we know now through history that's exactly what happened. So, look, for all the pundits, for all the commentators who say this is all over, I would say don't second guess the British public. People actually have their say over it, because that same poll you were quoting from at the top of the programme about what people think also says that 45% of people do not want to see Keir Starmer Prime Minister. So I think that we are still in absolutely with the shot, except we're the underdogs. I accept that. But I think we have a better programme on defence, on job creation, and everything else than the Labour Party. And when it comes to actually stopping the boats, they don't even have a plan, the Labour Party, and they keep voting against it 119 times in counting, up until and including last night in the House of Lords. And I think people start to realise Labour are not the solution. They'll look again at us and realise we've taken some difficult decisions, but get everything right. We're trying our best, and I think we're better news for the future of this country than Labour.
OK, just before we let you go, I wanted to ask you about RAF Weathersfield in Essex. It's an ex-RAF base. Asylum seekers have been moved out of there after safety risks were found, including radiological contamination and unexploded ordnance. I mean, do you have any understanding of what has happened there? Because it doesn't look good, does it? We've got the likes of Bibi Stockholm, which wasn't safe for asylum seekers, and now RAF Weathersfield. I mean, it looks as though accommodation for asylum seekers isn't fit for purpose.
But first of all, I should just stop it by saying one of the reasons we want to stop this illegal trade in people crossing the channel, and the Rwanda bill is a very important part of that, is to prevent us from needing accommodation in the first place. I mean, that's the first thing to say. Secondly, although it's got RAF in front of it, that's actually a Home Office site. They've obviously found a health and safety issue there. I'm not familiar with the details. I've just seen this morning. But they've obviously found a health and safety issue. It looks to me like they've acted very quickly and moved people out of there whilst they take care of that. But it brings me back to the point before. Let's stop the illegal trade in people. Let's pass this Rwanda bill. Let's stop messing around, as Keir Starmer was telling his lords to do last night, by chucking this out again. So the Commons is going to have to come back and vote on it. We've already voted for it numerous times. And let's actually break this illegal chain of people being brought here. And then we won't need this accommodation in the first place.
Grant Shapps, as always, good to see you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much indeed. Do let us know what you think about anything that Grant Shapps was saying there. gbnews.com/yoursay.